You're wrong about sleep. This will change everything.
You think sleep is just a blank screen? A time when your brain shuts down? What if I told you that the quietest hours of your night are, in fact, the most intellectually violent and productive?
Think about the last time you learned something really hard. Maybe a new language, a complex piece on the piano, or a difficult sports move. You struggle, you practice, and by the end of the day, your brain feels full, right? Muscles ache from exercise, but what does a brain do? It can't sweat. So it waits. It waits for you to fall asleep.
Because the moment you drift off, the real backstage work begins. Your brain isn't resting. It's replaying the day at an incredible speed. And this isn't a metaphor. Scientists have seen it. They confirm that during sleep, your brain actively reactivates the very same neural ensembles, the exact patterns of brain cells, that were firing while you were learning that new skill or absorbing that information. It's like your brain's internal film crew is replaying the day's most important scenes over and over, etching them into a more permanent storage.
But here's the hook. The truly brilliant part. It's not just about cementing what you've already learned. This nightly replay has a dual purpose. While it's strengthening those new memories, it is simultaneously clearing the stage and preparing room for new knowledge. It's making space for tomorrow's learning.
So that full feeling you had in your brain? Sleep is the janitor and the librarian, working the night shift to tidy up, file everything away, and get the shelves ready for a whole new day of information. It's the ultimate preparation.
And this is just the introduction. Because if you think this is wild, wait until we dive into the specific architecture of sleep, the different stages like REM and deep sleep, and discover exactly which one is responsible for making you smarter overnight. That's where things get truly mind-blowing. And that's exactly what we're unpacking next.
The nonsense word that cracked the sleep code. So when did we first get a hint that sleep was more than just rest? Let's rewind the clocks. For centuries, sleep was seen as this passive, almost empty state. But the first cracks in that theory appeared not in a high-tech lab, but in the 19th century, with a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus and his infamous nonsense syllables. He tried to memorize lists of these meaningless words, and he discovered something bizarre. If he'd tried to learn a list and then was tested immediately, he remembered quite a bit. But his memory plummeted as hours passed, unless he slept. After sleep, his recall was significantly better. It was as if the sleep had protected the memory, even made it stronger. This was one of the first scientific clues that something active was happening behind the scenes of consciousness. But here's the micro hook. What if I told you the next big breakthrough came from literally watching brains sleep? Because for decades, that's all we had, these behavioral clues. We knew sleep helped memory, but we had no idea how. The real game changer was the invention of the EEG, which let us see the brain's electrical symphony for the first time. And what we saw was astonishing. Instead of a blank, quiet line, the brain was erupting in chaotic, beautiful storms of activity. We discovered distinct stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and the wild, hallucinogenic dream state of REM. And each of these stages, we'd later learn, plays a unique and critical role in your brain's learning algorithm. It's not one process. It's a carefully choreographed, all-night performance.
But here's the twist that early researchers never saw coming, and it's the key to understanding why cramming all night for an exam is the worst thing you can possibly do. The brain doesn't just strengthen memories during sleep, it also makes a brutal, strategic decision about which ones to delete.
That's right. Your brain has its own sorting system, a keep or sweep mechanism that is working tirelessly while you dream.
and understanding how to influence that system is the ultimate life hack for learning anything faster. And that exact process, the secret conversation between your hippocampus and cortex, the literal rewriting of your neural circuitry, is what we're going to dissect in the next chapter. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. How your brain films your memories while you sleep. So let's get under the hood. What is actually happening inside your sleeping brain? We've talked about the stages, but now we get to the cellular level, and this is where it gets truly science fiction. It all revolves around what neuroscientists call engram cells. Think of these as the physical embodiment of a memory, a specific pattern of brain cells that fires together when you learn something new. Now, during the day, these engram cells are formed, but they're fragile, like wet cement. But here comes the magic of deep sleep. This is when your brain does something incredible. It reactivates these exact same engram cells. It replays the pattern over and over. This replay is like a signal that tells your brain, this one is important. Strengthen this connection. The cement solidifies. The memory becomes permanent. But wait, it gets even better. Because the brain isn't just a record keeper, it's a brilliant strategist. Professor Kaoru Inaguchi, who studies this, describes the next part with a beautiful analogy. He says that this process of strengthening memories during sleep is also like preparing the soil for the next harvest of knowledge. Let me explain what that means. It's not just about the past, it's about the future. By solidifying today's memories, your brain is actively creating what researchers call future engrams. It's preparing the neural pathways and freeing up resources so that you are literally primed to learn new, related information tomorrow. Imagine your brain is a library. Waking hours are when new books are delivered and tossed haphazardly on the floor. Deep sleep is when the librarian comes in, not just to shelve those new books, but to reorganize the entire sections, creating empty spaces on the shelves for the new deliveries coming tomorrow. That's the preparing the soil part. It's an active, preparatory process. And this leads to a mind-bending implication. A good night's sleep doesn't just make you remember what you learned yesterday, it physically prepares your brain to be a faster, more efficient learner today. But this entire sophisticated system hinges on one critical thing: getting the right kind of sleep. And to understand what right means, we first need to meet the key players in this nightly drama: deep sleep and REM. Because once you see how they work together, you'll understand exactly why disrupting them is so devastating. And that's exactly what we're breaking down next. Deep sleep versus REM, your brain's tag team champions.
So, if sleep is a learning machine, what are its gears? Let's meet the two superstars of your nightly cognitive workout. Deep sleep, also known as slow wave sleep, and REM sleep. They aren't just different stages, they play completely different, critical roles in your education.
First, deep sleep. This is the brain's file clerk. Imagine the hippocampus. Your brain's temporary storage for daily events is an SSD drive that fills up quickly. During deep, slow-wave sleep, research shows something crucial happens. Your hippocampus actively reorganizes memory. It's offloading those fresh, fragile memories from the hippocampus and transferring them to the long-term storage of the cortex, the brain's massive hard drive. This process is slow, methodical, and absolutely vital for creating stable, long-term knowledge. It's the foundation. But what about REM sleep? This is where the magic gets weird. REM is the brain's creative director, an emotional alchemist. Think about this. Have you ever struggled with a problem all day, gone to sleep and woken up with the solution crystal clear? That's REM at work. While your body is paralyzed, your brain is in a hyper-associative state, making bizarre and brilliant connections between seemingly unrelated memories. It's integrating that new knowledge from the cortex with everything you've ever known, weaving it into the fabric of your mind. This stage is where you gain understanding, not just recall.
And here's the micro hook that changes everything. Your brain isn't just doing this randomly. It cycles between these two stages all night in a precise, intelligent cadence. The early part of the night is dominated by deep sleep, doing the heavy lifting of memory transfer. The later cycles are rich with REM, where the insights and connections are forged.
This is why cutting your sleep short by even an hour is so devastating. You're not just losing rest, you're robbing yourself of the most crucial REM cycles where your brain does its most creative work. You're stopping the process before the masterpiece is finished. But knowing how it works is only half the battle. The real power comes from knowing how to control it. How do you ensure you're getting enough of both deep and REM sleep? What are the simple, actionable habits that can supercharge this entire process? That is the final piece of the puzzle. And in the next section, we're moving from theory to practice. We're talking about the exact science-backed strategies to hack your sleep and turn every night into a masterclass in learning and creativity. This is where you take control. The lie you're told about productivity, it's costing you.
So, let's tackle the biggest lie productivity culture ever sold us. The idea that burning the midnight oil, that sacrificing sleep is how you get ahead, that you can outwork everyone on caffeine and willpower alone. It sounds tough, it sounds dedicated, but the science says it's sabotage.
Because sleep isn't a luxury, it's your brain's chief operating officer. It doesn't just handle memory filing, it manages your entire cognitive budget. Let's talk about decision-making. When you're sleep-deprived, the first thing that goes offline is your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain. This is the region responsible for complex judgment, impulse control, and long-term planning. Without it, you become cognitively impulsive. You focus on short-term rewards and make riskier, often disastrous choices. There's a reason why studies of high-stakes traders show that a single night of poor sleep leads to significantly worse financial decisions the next day. Your brain, starved of sleep, literally cannot assess value correctly.
But here's the micro hook that might save your career and your relationships. It's not just about bad decisions, it's about emotional chaos. Think about the last time you were severely sleep-deprived. Were you calm, rational, and patient? Of course not. You were probably irritable, anxious, and emotionally volatile. That's because the amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, goes haywire without sleep. It becomes hypersensitive, reacting to minor stressors as if they were life-threatening crises.
Sleep is the regulator that keeps this emotional center in check, allowing you to respond, not just react. So this idea that you're getting more done by skipping sleep is an illusion. You might be putting in more hours, but you're operating with a brain that has poor judgment, unstable emotions, and crippled problem-solving abilities. You are, effectively, a high-performance car trying to win a race with the emergency brake on.
You are sabotaging your learning, your habits, and your potential with every hour of sleep you steal from yourself.
But this doesn't have to be your reality, because once you understand the why, you can master the how. How do you actually engineer your life and your habits to harness this incredible cognitive power? How do you transform your sleep from a passive state into an active tool for peak performance? That is the ultimate payoff. And in the final section, we're going to get intensely practical. We're talking about the non-negotiable, science-backed rules to not just sleep more, but to sleep smarter. This is where we turn all this theory into your unfair advantage.
The Midnight Habit Factory. How sleep builds your routines.
We've all been there. You decide to start a new habit, going to the gym,
eating healthier, learning a language. You push through the first day, maybe the second, but by day 3, that initial willpower evaporates. Why? We're taught that habits are built through sheer repetition and discipline during our waking hours. But what if I told you that the real architect of your habits isn't your conscious effort, but what happens after you close your eyes? The science reveals something extraordinary. That repetition everyone talks about, it's not complete until you've slept. Here's why. When you practice a new behavior during the day, you create a tentative neural pathway, a faint trail in the forest of your mind. It's unstable and easily overgrown. But then comes deep sleep. This is when your brain performs its magic of synaptic homeostasis. Think of it as a brilliant neural gardener. It prunes away the weak, unimportant connections from the day, the random thoughts, the distractions, and simultaneously waters and strengthens the pathways you actually used, including those of your new habit.
This is that little-known fact in action. Regular, healthy sleep dramatically improves your brain's ability to change its neural connections, its neuroplasticity. It's this enhanced plasticity that allows for the circuit for your new habit to be welded into place, making it more automatic and less dependent on fragile willpower.
But here is the micro hook that changes everything. Your brain doesn't just strengthen the habit, it automates it. During sleep, the responsibility for that behavior begins to shift from the prefrontal cortex, the part that requires conscious effort, to the basal ganglia, the brain's autopilot center. This is the fundamental difference between struggling to drag yourself to the gym and just going without a second thought. Sleep is what completes that transfer. It turns a conscious goal into an unconscious ritual.
So when you skip sleep to get more done, you are actively preventing your brain from cementing the very habits you're trying to build. You're forcing yourself to start from scratch every single morning, fighting an uphill battle with depleted willpower. This means the quality of your sleep is directly proportional to your ability to transform your life.
And this brings us to the most important question of all. How do you actually build a lifestyle that doesn't just allow for this kind of restorative sleep, but actively champions it? The answer isn't just in the conclusion, it's in a full, actionable plan. And in the very next part, we're moving from the why to the how with your personal sleep action plan. This is where we turn all this knowledge into your greatest competitive advantage. Hack your sleep in 3 steps. The nightly upgrade. All right, we've covered the incredible why. Now let's get to the powerful how. How do you actually engineer your life to harness this superpower? It's not about trying harder to sleep. It's about creating the conditions for sleep to do its best work. I'm going to give you 3 non-negotiable, science-backed rules. This is your tactical guide. First, and this is the most important one, become a dictator of your schedule, not a victim of it. Your brain craves predictability. It has a master clock called the circadian rhythm, and you need to be its loyal commander. This means going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every single day, even on weekends. Yes, even on Saturdays. When you do this, you align your brain's expectation with its biology, making it easier to fall into deep, restorative sleep cycles automatically. You're not just going to sleep, you're showing up for a scheduled cognitive optimization session. But what about when you're in bed? This leads to rule number 2. And here's a micro hook that might change your relationship with your bedroom. Your bed is for only 2 things: sleep and intimacy. Period. It is not your office, it is not your movie theater, and it is definitely not your stress-filled scrolling zone. Your brain creates powerful associations. If you work in bed, your brain starts to link your mattress with anxiety and alertness.
By making your bed a sanctuary for sleep alone, you train your brain to flip the off switch the moment your head hits the pillow. This is one of the most effective ways to combat insomnia.
Now let's talk about the 60 minutes before you want to be asleep. This is your power down hour. The goal here is to simulate sunset for your brain. Dim the lights in your house. I'm serious. Get some lamps and turn off the overhead bright ones. This signals to your pineal gland to start producing melatonin, the sleep hormone. And the elephant in the room? Screens. You need a hard stop on blue light 60 minutes before bed. If you absolutely must use a device, enable night shift mode and turn the brightness all the way down. But better yet, pick up a book, a physical one.
These aren't just good tips. This is the playbook for your brain's most productive shift. And this brings us to the final, most profound takeaway from all of this. We've journeyed from the cellular level to your nightly routine. We've seen how sleep transforms your memory, your habits, your emotions, and your intelligence. So what's the ultimate conclusion? What's the one big idea to take away?
That is exactly what will crystallize in the final part. We're going to tie it all together and reveal how you can start living a life where sleep is your greatest strategic advantage, starting tonight.
Sleep is your superpower. Here is your final mission.
So here we are. We started this journey thinking of sleep as a blank pause in our lives, a necessary downtime. But now we see it for what it truly is, the most sophisticated, active learning and optimization system you possess.
Let's rewind the tape one last time. We saw how your brain, while you're lost in dreams, is tirelessly at work. It's reactivating engram cells to cement the day's memories. It's transferring knowledge from the temporary drive of the hippocampus to the permanent library of the cortex. It's pruning useless information and strengthening the pathways that matter, turning fragile new habits into automatic behaviors.
We discovered that sleep isn't a single thing. It's a precise, intelligent cycle, where deep sleep acts as the filing clerk, organizing and storing, and REM sleep acts as the genius creative director, connecting dots and solving problems you couldn't crack while awake.
This whole process, this nightly masterpiece of cognitive engineering, does one monumental thing. It doesn't just protect yesterday's learning, it physically prepares your brain to be a more efficient, agile learner today. It prepares the soil for the next harvest of knowledge.
And that is the ultimate takeaway. The choice is no longer between working and sleeping. The real choice is between a cluttered, inefficient mind and a sharp, optimized one. Between struggling with willpower and operating on autopilot for your goals. Between reacting emotionally and responding with clarity.
You now hold the operational manual for your brain's most productive state. You have the power to stop seeing sleep as lost time and start treating it as the most strategic investment you can make in your learning, your career, and your personal growth. So tonight, when you turn off the lights, I want you to think not about resting, but about upgrading. You're not going to sleep. You're going to your nightly briefing. You're reporting for duty as the architect of your own mind.
And if this journey has reframed everything you thought you knew about sleep, if you found this value, then do me one small favor. Pay this knowledge forward. Share this video with one person who needs to hear this message, because everyone deserves to unlock this potential.
Now I'm passing the baton to you. Your first mission starts tonight. Go get the sleep you deserve.